In the picture, we were all smiling. Until one face turned that I didn't notice it at first. We were still laughing. 6 of us pressed shoulder to shoulder, sticky with lake air and cheap beer, the dock groaning under our weight. My phone camera clicked, the screen flashed, and that was that. A summer night stitched shut with one more photo. We'd planned the reunion for months, each calendar violently carved to make space, because that's what adulthood requires. Violence to your schedule, an act of will against the inertia of work and distance and sleep. We took the picture because we were there and a picture was proof. You know how it is. If you don't capture it, your brain eats it. Back at the cabin, I rinsed off the lake and scrolled through the day. The bonfire was a strange constellation of orange and embers. The canoe had somehow looked heroic from water level. Leo had caught a fish the size of a shoehorn and posed as if he'd speared a shark. And then there was the group shot. We were all smiling in it. That's the part one remember perfectly. We were all smiling. I put the phone down on the nightstand and killed the lamp. The cabin had that remote silence, the kind that sounds like foam, like something muffled just out of frame. I fell asleep thinking about nothing in particular and dreamt of the dock floating away with us still on it. Our legs kicking like we were riding a great animal into darkness. The next morning, sunlight turned the room white. I reached for the phone to post the photo because that's what you do. The ritual of proof, friendship in 12 megapixels. It was the same shot as last night. Same wide lake behind us, same rotten wood planks under us. Except Leo's face had turned. Not much, just a little. Enough that he wasn't facing the camera anymore. His head was quarter profile, as if he'd heard a noise behind him. His eyes weren't visible. A bit of brow ridge, a slope of cheek, the suggestion of an ear that I didn't think haunted or wrong or even glitch at first. I thought, huh? Then I thought, maybe I had 2 similar shots and tapped the other one. I swiped left, right, checked the timestamp. There was only one group photo. One. My stomach did a small, stupid somersault. I felt like I did when a word I know slips into fog and I can't hold on to it. Leo was on the back deck when I went outside, holding his mug like a trophy. Dude, I said, you turned away. In the picture. What? He made his eyes huge and mock-shocked. I'm a diva. Can't catch my good side. No, seriously, I said, and showed him. He squinted, then shrugged. We took like 10, right? 1. It's fine, he said and handed me the mug. It's not like we're doing a magazine spread. We were alone out there, the others still dead to the world. Leo leaned on the rail, looking out at the faint mist rising off the lake. You ever notice, he said, how the dock sounds like a person when you walk on it? No, he shifted his weight. The wood creaked, one long tired sound. There, like it's saying something. What's it saying? He smiled without teeth. Don't know. Maybe just enough. He went quiet then, and the silence spread between us like a spill. That was the last normal moment of that trip. That you can't hold a group together for long. People start leaving like teeth falling out of a mouth, one at a time. Leo left first, noon the next day, claiming he had to beat traffic. He hugged each of us in the parking area while his engine ticked under a hood hot enough to fry an egg. He smelled like cedar smoke and aftershave. Text when you get home, I said, because that's what you say when there's nothing else to say in that narrow doorway of leaving. Always do, he said, and he smiled, but he didn't look at me when he did. The rest of us stayed and washed the dishes and cleaned the cabin, like rituals could hold the world together. When I got home, my phone buzzed with the cascade. Great to see you. We should do it again in the fall. Hearts and thumbs and fireworks exploding over words. No, Leo. I waited, then I texted. Home? No, that's. No answer. I went back to the photo to scroll through the weekend memories, but also to check, because something in me had become a magnet for it. It was the same shot, us in a row on the dock. But Leo's face had turned more, not fully away yet, but enough that his nose was a knife edge against the lake. Enough that a shadow had gathered under his cheekbone like a thumbprint that I stared, feeling the slow cold of comprehension trying to form. I told myself to stop. I told myself it was nothing, some digital hiccup, a months-old rumor about computational photography smoothing out features and misreading angles. I told myself a lot of things. At 2 a.m., a message finally arrived from Leo's number. It was a photo. There was a horizon in it, thin and flat and featureless, and a faint, blurred smear in the corner, like a thumb had dragged motion across the lens. The caption read, "Wrong turn." I stared. I typed, "Where are you?" I waited for dots, got none, waited anyway. Fell asleep on my back like a dead thing. In the morning, there was a voicemail. I played it first thing because that's what I do. I deal with the small things before the big ones so I can pretend I'm moving through the day in a straight line. The voicemail was 11 seconds long. It was wind and road noise and a single clear breath. Then, very faint, Leo's voice, "Hey!" and a pause like someone had hit pause on him. And then another voice, lower and too close to the mic, said, "Turn your face." The message ended. I replayed it. Same. I swallowed a mouthful of iron-tasting air and called him back. The number rang and rang. The world decided to be bright outside my window. Somebody was walking a dog. A bus splashed through a puddle. And somewhere in all that normal noise, a line had been cut between one thing and another. That night, the news said a car had been pulled from a lake 2 counties away. I turned off the TV before the names, but the quiet knows how to talk when you let it. When I went back to the photo, I didn't look for Leo. I already knew. I looked for what else had shifted. I found it in the same place as always, the corner where human error becomes meaning. Kiera's face was turned a fraction now. Not much, just enough that her gaze didn't line up with the rest of ours. Just enough that I realized how logic had begun to kneel. I stopped sleeping for a few nights. Not because of the photo, not entirely. Because I kept feeling like someone was in the room with me, just out of frame. I started leaving lights on in stupid places. The bathroom with the door ajar, the hallway lamp. When darkness deepened, I'd hear the wood of my apartment floor make a long single sound, as if it were the dock again, complaining under invisible weight. Kiera stopped answering the group chat on Wednesday. On Thursday morning, she posted an Instagram story of a blank white wall and typed, "I think it's me" over it. I messaged, "Pick up. Where are you?" She didn't. That night, I lay awake listening to a subtle sound coming through the open window. 3 slow, heavy breaths. I got up and looked out and saw no one on the street. I checked the photo. I don't know why I checked the photo, but I did. We were all still there on the dock. Leo's face was completely turned away now, an ear and nothing else. Kiera's face had turned farther, a degree, 2 degrees. Her mouth wasn't smiling anymore. It was flat like a drawn line. I scrolled back and forth like rubbing a bruise. The image had only one timestamp, one file name, one instance on my phone. That's all. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't. You learn to keep your bizarre small. You learn not to spill it. We eat our confessions until we can pass in public. I went to work with a face that knew how to be a face and held a sob in my throat like a secret. On Friday, I drove to the cabin because my brain decided that proximity mattered. I brought the phone because of course I did. The road buckled under heat mirages and the trees on the shoulder leaned in like gossiping men. The lake looked flat and exhausted when I got there. The dock recognized me, creaked. I took out my phone on the exact same planks where we'd sat and I opened the photo and I stared. Nobody else was there but me. Nobody but the water and the small repetitive slap of waves against wood. The picture seemed to move while I watched. No, not move, but be farther along each time I blinked. A reel I couldn't control. Kiera's face turned a little more. A shadow fell across her shoulder in the picture. I lifted my head to see if a cloud had passed overhead, but the sunlight around me was consistent, a sustained blade. "I see you," I said to no one. Then to the phone. "What do you want?" The lake made that licking sound against the dock again. Like a tongue that I tried something stupid then. I switched to the front-facing camera and took a selfie on the dock. Just me, eyes bruised, beard uneven, hair startled into some shape that would never return. I printed it on a little thermal printer I keep in my bag for zines and analog collages. The print came out warm and damp and faintly chemical. I placed my fresh little me next to the screen showing the group shot. "New image," I said. "Overwrite." Nothing happened. The cabin was an empty mouth behind me. The picture was a surface with a dead lake inside it. A fish jumped somewhere and it sounded like a shoe dropping into a bathtub on the way home. Kiera called. I almost drove into the ditch trying to answer. "Hello," I said, ugly with hope. Her breath was ragged. Her voice was a raw scrape. "He keeps telling me to turn." "Who?" "The man in the photo," she said. "We're all in the photo," I started, but she kept talking like she hadn't heard me. "He stands behind my couch when I watch TV. He stands by the door when I try to leave. He keeps telling me, 'Turn your face.'" And she stopped. I heard a rustle, as if she'd clutched the phone with both hands. I thought if I did, it would be over. So I did. I turned, and now he's closer. "Do not hang up," I said. "I'm coming to you. Keep the line open. Keep talking to me." But she whispered, "He's right here." And the call went thin, and the line broke. The 3 little beeps stabbed me through the ear that I didn't make it to her apartment in time to see anything but aftermath. There were people in the hallway. The emergency glow washed everything in a hospital color. The kind that says, "Be quiet now, this is not your scene." No one would tell me anything. A cop with a scruff of beard and eyes that were actually kind said, "Sir, you need to step back." I asked, "Is she?" Without finishing. He just looked at me like he had practiced for this exact moment for years and hadn't gotten any better at it.by then I was religious in a very modern way. My faith was in the photo. The thing I kept opening and opening as if it were a door with different rooms behind it every time. I checked it standing there in the hallway like a person reading a text to avoid eye contact with grief. In that frozen rectangle of us at the lake, Kiera had finally turned away. My stomach did that trick where it lifts without moving. In the left margin of the photo, I saw something I hadn't seen before. A shape, small at first, just a smudge where the planks met the lake. It looked like a 7th face pressed into the border of the frame, as if someone was half in, half out of the world. The longer I watched, the clearer the shape got. A crown of hair, a suggestion of cheek, not facing the camera, not quite. The more the familiar faces turned away, the more space there was for something else to turn toward me. I stopped telling myself sensible things. I started doing things that will sound not sensible to you. I took the original photo into a print shop and had it printed large, 50 by 70 centimeters, on glossy stock. The printer asked if it was a promotional poster. I said yes. He slid it to me across the counter without meeting my eyes, as if the picture contained something he wasn't paid enough to handle. The paper smelled sweet and synthetic. I carried it home like a protest sign. I pinned it to my living room wall. I pulled the curtains. I turned off everything except one lamp. I sat on the floor and watched the image in the stillness. Time lost its shape. The house clicked and settled. A car passed outside. A neighbor's shower came on like rain in the walls. The faces were the faces, and then they weren't, and then they were again. It was like watching tide. You only understand it after it's already moved. When it happened, I almost missed it. The 7th face in the margin pressed farther into frame and the paper buckled slightly. as if heat had been applied. I stood, blood bright in my ears, and stepped closer. You've seen those optical illusions where a figure drawn in a hallway appears to follow you, because the perspective tricks your brain into giving a flat shape depth. This was not that. This was the opposite. This was my brain trying to flatten something that had failed to be contained. "Who are you?" I asked the wall, and a voice, too close to my ear, said, "One of you." I spun. No one stood behind me. No one stood anywhere but the furniture. The voice had the opposite of reverb, like sound that had been inside the room long before I spoke. I went back to the wall. In the big print, Margot's face had turned a fraction now. Margot with her crooked canine and her always approaching laugh. Margot who had been engaged twice and called off both with a bravery I wished I understood. Margot who had sat on the dock with one foot dragging through the green water, making circles that the fish nosed at. I knew I had hours, a day at most. I knew I couldn't call the cops and say, "My friend is going to die," because a picture is telling her to turn her face. Even if a saint answered the phone, how could he translate that into a procedure? So I did the next thing my brain invented. I took a picture of the picture. The camera made an apology click. The new photo looked like a copy of a copy, a little lower in contrast, the lake duller, the faces less crisp. But the seventh shape in the margin was fainter in this new one, a paler stain. I printed the new photo out on cheap copy paper and taped it over the glossy poster like a bandage. "Stay," I told it. "Stay." The bandage rippled once in a wind that didn't exist and lay flat again. Maybe it was placebo. Maybe it was grace. Either way, Margot lived through the night. She texted in the morning, dreamt of drowning in a picture LOL, and added a skull and a camera and a wave, because emojis are our incantations now. I texted "stay with someone today," and she wrote back "okay dad," and sent a selfie with a cereal spoon in her mouth. I didn't go to work. I sat on the floor and watched the bandaged image. The cheap paper got damp from the glue and the heat of the room. The corners curled and I pressed them down with coins. Every few hours I peeled the paper back and checked the original photo underneath. The seventh shape kept trying to push through, and each time it did, one of the faces had turned a degree or two more. The bandage slowed it. It didn't stop it. By evening, Margot's mouth was no longer smiling in the original. By midnight, her eyes seemed to be focused on something past the camera. Past me. I printed another layer, taped it up, held it there until the glue set with a smell like sugar gone wrong. At 3 a.m. My phone vibrated with a video call from an unknown number. I propped the phone face down like a coward and let it buzz out. Called again. I answered with the camera off. "Hello," I said. There was no answer, just the hush of a room with a big window. I listened hard and heard 3 slow creaks. Not a floorboard, not pipes, wood under weight, like footsteps on a dock. "Who is this?" I asked. A whisper came back, not into my ear but into the apartment. "Turn your face." I stood with the phone away from my head. The whisper had come from the wall, from behind the layers of taped paper. I don't know if I can explain what it felt like. The conviction that if I obeyed that voice and physically turned my face away from the picture, some hinge would click and a door would open and something would step through. So I did what you do when you carry a hot pan too far and realize your hand is going to blister no matter what. Something purely animal. I threw it. I tore the image down in a jerk and it ripped in both layers, and the glossy original underneath tore too. A white lightning bolt tearing down through Margot's shoulder and across the seventh shape at the border. I stood there breathing like I'd run upstairs and the world did not end, and the apartment did not fill with water, and I was not pulled into flatness. The picture hung in 2 limp halves from 2 corners of tape. In the bottom half, something had changed. The seventh shape looked like it had been cut by the tear, and it had moved or been moved downward, as if its attempt to enter had been interrupted mid-step. It made me think of the dock again. The way the boards groan when you step and then stop. A sort of idiotic relief washed through me. I had won, I thought. I had solved it. As if a ghost were a garment you could pin.at dawn. My phone buzzed with a message from Margot. "You up?" I called her and she answered, and her voice sounded exactly like it had always sounded, plus the grain of sleep. She said she'd had a nightmare where she had to keep her face still because if she turned even a little, the whole world would slide sideways. I told her to do something stupid and bright with her morning. Go buy a bouquet, go sit in the sun, go take a photo of a different lake. She laughed and said, "Okay, Dad," again, and I almost cried just from the human old joke of it that I considered burning the photo then. But the idea made me feel the way I do when someone says, "Delete your backups." Destroying the image didn't feel like rescue. It felt like release. So I set the halves back together and taped them. I printed new layers and taped those too. I posted my first ever irrational request to our group chat. "Everyone, do not take any photos today. Please, humor me." Margot sent a row of knives and a fine. Weston sent weirdo and then a heart. Steph sent "Are you okay?" and then okay. I didn't leave the apartment. I taped and watched and drank terrible coffee and listened to the floor make its tired music. The picture changed the way a bruise blooms, slow, then all at once. In each peeled back check, a new degree of face had turned further away from me, from the camera, from whatever you want to call the eye. When I hit a point where I knew the next day it would be me, because that's the order of cruelty, isn't it? I sat down hard on the floor and I let the truth be a heavy thing right on my chest. I understood with a clarity that felt like cold water that the only way out was through. I took my phone, I turned the camera on, I framed the tacked up mess of prints and tapes and rips, and my own face reflected faintly in the glass of the frame I'd hastily added to keep the paper flat. "I'll do it," I said to the picture, to the room, to the man in the frame, to the dock, to the lake, to the breath in the voicemail, to whatever adjudicates mercy in this world. "Take me, turn me." I set the timer for 3 seconds. The tiny white numbers counted down. In those counts, I felt every departure in my life. The way we trained ourselves to look at cameras and not each other. The way we let proof be more familiar than presence. The way the doc had spoken all along, and we had heard it as wood and not as warning. The shutter sound chirped. The phone made its fake click. I didn't look at the result. I printed it immediately, big on glossy paper. I slid the new image under the ruined old one and pressed the frame down onto it. The new photo was of me, standing in front of the wall, the shadow of the apartment lamp knifing across my shoulder. My face was turned a fraction, just a little, like I'd heard a noise behind me. And behind me, inside the frame, the seventh shape had come farther in. I could see the line of a mouth now. I felt like I had finally, disastrously, invited someone all the way into my living room. "Here I am," I said. "Here I am." I left the apartment and walked to the lake on the edge of the city. I had to be near water because all of this had begun with water. I sat on a cement step that had once been a dock for boats that no longer came. I turned my face the way the picture had asked me to. I held it there until my neck ached. I closed my eyes in the bright afternoon. A mosquito wrote its name on my skin, and I waited. Nothing happened for a long time. Then the light changed. Not in the sky, in me. Something stepped behind the world, or inside it, and tilted. Not a noise exactly, but I heard it with the same muscles I used to hear. A hinge. A door. A breath in reverse. A voice that was not a voice said from a place that had no distance. "That's better." When I opened my eyes, the lake was the color of steel. Wind cut across it, chopping the surface into a million little facts. I stood and my legs remembered me. I walked home on knees full of pins. On my street, a child dropped a ball and it rolled into traffic and a car braked hard and someone shouted and the child laughed. Alive, like a bell that had never been struck. All of it unbearably ordinary. Inside my apartment, the frame on the wall was empty. Nothing hung there.
No tap, no print, no tornalves.
Just a faint, clean rectangle on paint a little darker around the edges. A ghost of a ghost. The way a picture leaves the memory of itself after you take it down. My phone buzzed. The group chat lit with a dozen messages. OMG brunch turned into dinner from Steph. New tattoo from Weston with a picture of a compass on his wrist. Alive from Margot, a video of her standing on a different dock, one with new wood, the sound it made small and shy. I had one new message from an unknown number. It was a single photo. I thumbed it open. It was our group on the dock at the lake. All 6 of us, smiling like our faces were coins. The water behind us was still and soft and blue. No seventh shape pressed the border. Leo faced the camera again, eyes bright. Kiara's smile had its ridiculous crooked dimple in it. Margot's canine was the same perfect little irregularity. Everything was exactly as it had been the first second after the shutter. And there, in the corner, where I remembered there had once been only a bit of weathered plank and the line where lake met sky, there was a thin smear, like a thumb had dragged through the gloss while the ink was still wet. I tilted the screen and the smear caught the room's light. I took a breath and realized I'd been holding it for hours, days, since summer. I saved the new image and I didn't post it. I didn't show it to anyone. I didn't even set it as my wallpaper. I made a folder called Proof and put it there because that is how faith looks in the age of glass. You make a folder and you hide it and you look at it when you need to know that what you lived was not a dream. For a week, nothing else happened. Then I recorded this story for my channel. I told it plain and without tricks because tricks are an anesthetic and I want whatever is listening to be awake. I exported the audio with all its breaths and clicks. I scrubbed out my address because I'm not completely stupid. I chose a thumbnail frame of the dock and the lake and the sky as flat as a piece of silk. And I uploaded because that's what I do and that's what you do and that's what all of us do when the world leans. We look for a face. The first comment came fast. Is it just me or did one of the faces in the picture look away for a second? Then, bro, I swear when you showed the photo at 1:14 the guy on the left blinked. Then, pause at 0:59 you can see someone in the corner. He watched the video back to check the comments, which is to say to check reality. I paused at 0:59 and I saw what they saw. A faint smear by the border, a suggestion of a face that had learned how to press itself into any rectangle it wanted. I paused at 1:14 and I watched carefully and I saw Leo's eyes do a thing that could be compression artifact or could be something else. I could tell you it was just the way the app handles frames. I could tell you a lot of things. Instead, I turned my phone face down on the table and listened to the apartment be an apartment. The air moved. The refrigerator hummed. Water went through pipes to the floor above me and then stopped. The dock, my floor, made no sound. A kind of peace that I don't trust unrolled. I sat with it anyway. You're with me now. You've heard this. You've looked because that's what we do. We look when we're told not to. If you paused and scrunched your face, if you leaned in, if you thought you saw something, I'm not going to tell you you didn't. We've given a lot of our lives to pictures. Maybe they decided to give something back. If you ever take a group photo by water, listen to the dock when you step away. If it breathes like something with weight, if the boards complain like a body, if the frame you hold in your hand feels warmer than it should, don't turn your face when a voice tells you to. Or do. Maybe there are doors and hinges and a way to move through a flat surface without breaking it. All I know is this. In the picture, we were all smiling, every one of us, until one face turned. And the world, which had been flat and safe, became a surface with depth. If I could go back, I wouldn't fix it. I would take the picture again with the timer off and the laughter real and my face not turned. And I would still listen to the dock and do what I did and open the door because there are some rooms you can only enter by being looked at from the wrong angle. If you're watching this on your phone, tilt the screen a little. See how the light slides across it, how the faces change not because they move but because you do. Hold it there for a second. Hold your breath. Hear the room around you. Now look back at the photo. Count the faces. Count them again.